arrangements announced for him.
Also to come, the NPP holds ballot for position on the ballot paper ahead of presidential primary scheduled for January 31st, 2026.
New esquires in town, over 800 of them, are being called to the bar today. We're live at the conference center for details.
And TV3's Joseph Akable has also been called to the bar.
And 6 to Stone Ulo as well.
Absolutely.
All are being called to the bar today. Hello and welcome to the bulletin. I am Mawuena Egbeta.
And I am Kemini Amanor. The news starts right now. First wife and children of the late high life legend Charles Kojo, popularly known as Daddy Lumba, have filed an application in court against funeral arrangements announced for him. The DL Radio on Wednesday, October 8, 2025 announced that December 6, 2025 has been set as date for the funeral of Daddy Lumba in Kumasi.
Lumba's nuclear family, comprising first wife Akosua Sewafosu and their children, claimed the funeral arrangements were made without their consent. In a press statement issued on Thursday, October 9, 2025, the direct family described the funeral announcement of the musician as deeply distressing, saying they first heard of it on social media. Well, according to them, Ebusuapanyin Kofi Usu and a funeral committee are acting in their own interests without regard for the wishes and rights of the deceased's direct family. The statement said the move showed a complete lack of respect for Mrs. Fosu and her children, who needed to make plans to travel to Ghana for the funeral. Lumba's direct family claimed that since the musician's passing on July 26, 2025 in Accra, there has been a continuous and deliberate effort to marginalize Mrs. Akosua Sewafosu, the wedded wife, in all funeral-related decisions. Her family further revealed that the cause of death remains under investigation. They reminded the public that the late musician was legally married to Mrs. Akosua Sewafosu on 23 December 2004 in Bernheim, Germany, and that under German law, bigamy is strictly prohibited. Citing Section 1306 of the German Civil Code, the family said a marriage may not be entered into if one of the persons is already married, stressing that any second marriage under such circumstances is legally void. The statement asks Lumba's fans around the world to disregard any unofficial announcements regarding funeral arrangements.
Let's show you a bit more of what Akosua Sewafosu is seeking from the court, and she's asking the court to declare that the plaintiff in this case, the second wife, Priscilla Ofori, also known as Odobroni, Transition Homes, and the Ebusuapanyin, that she wants the court to say that the plaintiff, which is her, is the only surviving spouse of the late Charles Kojo Fosu, also known as Daddy Lumba. The first wife is also asking the court to declare that only the plaintiff, which is herself and her children, have the right to perform the widowhood rites of Daddy Lumba. And then a further order restraining the first defendant from ever dealing with the second defendant as spouse of the deceased. Now, if you didn't go through that, the first defendant will be the Ebusuapanyin, and then the second defendant in that case will be the woman known as the second wife, and she is asking the court to order that the second defendant does not carry herself as the surviving spouse of Daddy Lumba. Let's have a quick chat on the back of this. We'll engage now the thoughts of private legal practitioner Christian Hesse. Christian, thank you so much for your time here. But listen, give us a bit of education on this. What does this mean in the face of the law, really? Well, it would appear we cannot hear him at this time. But so let's go through the reliefs, because it's a whole host of reliefs, at least about a dozen of them. And as part of the reliefs being sought by, Akosua Sewa Fosu, who's Daddy Lumba's first wife, she wants to be declared the only surviving spouse of the late Daddy Lumba. Let's talk now to Christian Hesse, who's a legal practitioner on this matter developing over the last 24 hours or so. Christian, again, thank you so much for your time here. Hopefully you can hear us now. But all of these things that are going on, what really is the interpretation the law gives to circumstances like this?
Yeah, good afternoon to your viewers, and just a digress before I come on. Congratulations to the newly called lawyers to the bar. The point is that if you look at our law, when we say locus classicus, it basically deals with the decided case or the decided principle that deals with a particular matter. Now, when it comes to burial, arrangement of funeral rites, procuring the body from the morgue, decision taking as far as a deceased person is concerned in Ghana, the case to go to is called Nikwe and another versus Oko. It's a 1993-1994 case that set the precedent right, and it crystallized that when the person dies, it is the family that owns the body, and the nuclear family, that's the wife, the surviving spouse, and then the children. Their decisions come to play, so the family is to consult them on matters, but their decisions merely remains wishes. In fact, the judge used that word, wishes. So when it comes to arrangement of funeral and all the antecedent issues, the nuclear family, albeit the surviving spouse, just need to express their wishes for the family to consider and factor in the arrangement and organization of the funeral. The spouse or the family, the nuclear family, cannot dictate the direction of how the funeral and all that will go, but their wishes are just desirous, and that is what the law says. That principle has been set, and that is it. So because in that particular case, that is what happened, and the court had to dismiss a number of the relief that the wife and children at the time had brought. If you look at Daddy Lumba's situation, Daddy Lumba's wife, as it is, she says she's the wife. Indeed, her contention should come when an application for letters of administration is filed as who is wife and who qualifies to be an administrator thereof. We have not gotten there yet. But if it has to do with the funeral organization and anything that has to do with it, then I believe that with the of respect, matters are misplaced now. There should be an engagement, there should be mediation towards the organization, but the stance taken now will not help. I have been in a matter like that which went before the High Court, where the family was contending to have the funeral And the children also maintain that the deceased mother wanted to be buried in Accra. At the end of the day, it's mediation. The court stepped in and said that parties need to mediate in order for this dispute to come to an end. So I would rather pray that the lawyers involved, I mean, they should know the case, and they should know the position of the law. That when it comes to organization of funeral, the law is to the family, and there's nothing that one can do to change it. That is their position, unless one goes to Supreme Court to have by way of tariff society change that position. But as the position of the law now, the family has every right on deciding how the funeral should go.
Very well. So, Hesi, I mean, what we are saying now, Hesi, is that this injunction application does not have the ability to stop the funeral on December 6th?
The injunction would be heard, but at the end of the day, the matter will go nowhere. That is the position. That's the position of the law. The injunction would be heard. The family would also file an opposition to it. Indeed, the Nico and another versus Kuku, it is the wife, just as you have it, the wife and the children filed an application, filed an injunction application, and at the end of the day, the court ruled that you cannot have the spouse and the children cannot dictate how the funeral, the arrangement, the procurement of the body from the mortuary should go. It is a decision that squarely lies with the family, through the head of family. And it is not that of the spouse to decide, but they should be consulted, and that their wishes are to be heard. So whatever they desire, whatever they have on their heart, the court describes it as wishes, and that the family should hear them.
Hesi, there's also been the question about whether or not the late High Life artist committed bigamy when he married under German law and then also customarily married his second wife.
Come again, please. I didn't get that.
Well, I'm asking. There's also been the conversation as to whether or not there was bigamy involved here when he married under German law, Akosua Sewa, but also married Odobroni here in Ghana customarily, and whether or not that has a way of preventing Odobroni from asserting herself as the second wife or even the widow of Daddy Lumba. What does the law say?
Now, I mean, definitely, I mean, if you are married by ordinance, and you cannot marry another person by way of customary law, because the law says that customary marriage and ordinance are mutually exclusive of each other. So you need to dissolve the ordinance marriage before you marry somebody by customary law marriage. But if you marry someone by customary law marriage, you can marry another person too by customary law marriage, because customary law marriage is polygamous in nature. But once you marry somebody by ordinance, you can definitely not marry the other by customary law marriage. So, say that Daddy Lumba has done such a thing, you cannot hold him for bigamy. The person is in the morgue.
Absolutely.
The person is dead. So, at the end of the day, if they are fighting for bigamy, that will not happen. Number two, where she can fight for is letters of administration. And if Daddy Lumba has done a will, then the will speaks for itself, unless she can come under section 13 of the Will Act to say that provision was not made for her and she will suffer hardship and all of that. That's one. Those are the sections under which the court can make a provision under the will. But aside that, currently, as it deals with funeral arrangements, and we are not dealing with probate or letters of administration, with funeral arrangements, everything lies with the family. The family is vested with that legal and customary authority to do it. However, the spouse or the children of the deceased are to be heard, and that is the position of the law.
But I mean, our local laws also give some privileges to, even if this is not recognized under law, it does give privileges to cohabitation, especially those that have produced children. Is that the case?
So, I mean, where we stretch it to, or where we jump the matter to issues of letters of administration or who is wife, who is not wife, at the end of the day, assuming without admitting that the one from Germany is married under ordinance, as she claims, and this one was also married under customary law marriage, then it would stand to suggest in law that the second marriage was no marriage at all, because Daddy Lumba married the first one under ordinance. So once it is under ordinance and it's mutually exclusive of each other, the second marriage before the law never existed, and that if she has to benefit under PNDC law 111, as meaning without that Lumba did not execute a will, then the second wife would benefit through the children. So the children would benefit, and then and that is how she would benefit there. But if that Lumba indeed executed the will, then the will would dictate how everybody's rights or whatever demise under the will benefit the beneficiary.
Very well. We'll end it here and see how this plays out in court. Thank you so much. Christian Hesse is a private legal practitioner.
Let's do politics now, because the New Patriotic Party will this afternoon ballot for positions on the ballot paper ahead of the party's presidential primary scheduled for January 31, 2026. 5 aspirants are scheduled to meet the National Elections Committee at the party's headquarters in Accra to conduct the exercise. Deputy General Secretary of the NPP, Mawuena Mohammed, said the balloting will be held for all aspirants who fulfill the party's requirements. They are doubt on whether or not Kwabena Agyapong will be on the ballot paper following reports of his inability to pay the 4 million cedis filing fees, making him eligible to campaign. But presently, as we're learning, 5 aspirants have declared their intentions to contest to become the NPP's flag bearer and to lead the party into the elections. And we know them: Dr. Bawumia Kennedy Agyapong, Dr. Brian Achampong, Dr. Yawose Duchum, and as well Kwabena Agyapong. And the outcome of the balloting will, amongst many things, determine where their position on the ballot paper when they go to that all-crucial primary on the 31st of January 2026. Let's hear now from Mawuena Mohammed as he explained what is expected to happen.
Excuse of any specific guideline of the party. The guidelines of the party is grounded in the party's constitution, and every member who wants to lead the party into the 2028 elections must abide by. So tomorrow they have invited all of them, and the criteria that is used for the balloting will be executed, and that exactly will give us the opportunity to ascertain. So anybody that fulfills the requirement will certainly go in for balloting. So if you see that all of them have gone in and they have been allowed to ballot, it means that they have all met the conditions.
Well, we're getting news that balloting I was talking to you about is in. Kennedy Agyapong is number 1, Dr. Brian Achampong number 2, Dr. Bawumia number 3, Dr. Yawose Duchum number 4, and then Engineer Kwabena Agyapong number 5. That's the order in which they will be lined up on the ballot paper for that all-important primary, the presidential primary of the opposition NPP, which will seek to elect for them a flag bearer headed into the 2028 general election. That's just by way of the latest that's just come through. Kennedy Agyapong, number 1 on the ballot. Dr. Brian Achampong, number 2. Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, number 3. Dr. Yawose Duchum, number 4. And then as well, Engineer Kwabena Agyapong is number 5 on the ballot. I'll go over it again for you if you're just coming through and you're tuning in here on News Central. The NPP Elections Committee for the party's presidential primary has concluded balloting for the 5 aspirants. And this is the order in which they are going to be lined up on the ballot paper when they go to the polls on January 31, 2026. Kennedy Ohene Japan is number 1 on the ballot paper. Dr. Brian Champong will be number 2 on the ballot paper. The former vice president and the former flag bearer, or the 2024 flag bearer of the party, Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, is number 3 on the ballot paper. Dr. Yawose Duchum is number 4 on the ballot paper. And then Engineer Kwabena Japan is number 5 on the ballot paper. But we'll stay on the NPP, moving away from the presidential primary and talk about its Ashanti Regional Chairman, because the lead counsel for Bernard Ntwibwe, known as Chairman Wuntumi Andy Apiakubi, has disclosed that barring any last-minute hitches, his client will be released today. The Ashanti Regional Chair of the NPP has spent 2 days behind custody after he failed to meet his bail conditions. He has been charged with multiple offenses, including undertaking illegal mining operations and causing unlawful damage to the environment. In addition, the NPP regional chair has been placed on a stop list, preventing him from leaving the country until the matter is resolved. His lawyer spoke to TV3. And we'll hear from Andy Apiakubi for you shortly. But amongst many other things, we've been seeking to get some explanations. You know, there are 2 charges or 2 cases separately against Chairman Wuntumi and his mining company, Akwinta Mines. The first, as of Wednesday, was very early in the morning. But I believe we can hear now from Andy Apiakubi.
We have met all the bail conditions. Except a transfer of his passport from Yoko to the registry of the court. The officials at Yoko promised to deliver them tomorrow. So tomorrow morning, God willing, we'll be able to secure the release of Chairman Wuntumi for him to come home. We don't anticipate any further delays. We have met with all the conditions. Once the passport is delivered to the register of the court, we will be sure of his release. Well, I think that when the accused person has not been found guilty of any offense, he's entitled to his freedom. And that is exactly what the court determined. Nevertheless, the court, in its own wisdom, decided to give these conditions of bail. But the complaint has been that when people are admitted to bail with justification, there is always the possibility of delay in executing the order. And that's what I explained, that you need a verification from Lands Commission, which takes time. And after the verification, you need also the evaluation of the property, which also has the potential to delay. So when you have gone through all that, there are chances that you may have spent some days in custody when you have even discharged the conditions to the registry of the court, because the execution process causes delay. And I was suggesting that we need to take a second look at it, because when the law requires of you to be free and the courts pronounce a ruling giving indication that you must go scot-free, there is a process that you go through, and that process, the system has challenges. And I'm saying that it does not give you, the accused person, your right to freedom as expected by the rule. And in any case, in the process of executing the bail conditions, you are likely to also lose a lot of money.
Sandy Apia-Kubi, and most certainly we'll get a bit more in terms of the details a lot later.
Now, the Attorney General is prosecuting over 1,500 cases of illegal mining, which are currently at various stages of prosecution. This was announced by the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, which says government is resolved to ending the Galamsey menace. Speaking to the media Friday, the Director of Communications at the ministry said over 1,500 arrests made by the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat demonstrates government's will to the fight. Christian Yale is joining us with a bit more on this story. Christian, what else can you report from there?
Yes, exactly. And so these are arrests that have been made in 2025 alone through the operations of the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat, which is also known as NIMOS, and also that of Blue Water Guards. The understanding we have even is that over the last week, through the operations of NIMOS, some 28 illegal miners have been arrested at the Cape 3 Point Forest Reserve, and a number of mining equipment also seized across most of these mining sites. The understanding again from the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources is that there is a special bill that is to be laid before Parliament once it reconvenes to ensure that special, tribunals are set up to fast track some of these special cases involving the illegal miners. We can take a listen to the Director of Communications at the ministry.
On the 9th of October, for instance, we had 28 illegal miners arrested at Cape 3 Point. We've had about 6 excavators seized during the week. Water pumping machines, 65 of them, across various areas, including dredging dumping. And Cobra were also clear to say the law is the law, and if you break the law, there will be consequences. We have seen arrests. We've seen several arrests over the period. We're talking close to 1,500 arrests over the period, and the Attorney General is working on prosecutions. This week in Cabinet, there was a bill that was laid for special tribunal courts for specialized cases, and you can bet that illegal mining is going to be one of them. So in the coming days, when Parliament resumes, we're likely to see, we're going to see that bill laid, and we're going to see faster prosecutions for illegal mining cases as we go along. There is political will, and this government is resolved and unwavering in their commitment to bringing an end to this threat.
Concerns about how this fight can be sustained, Christian. What is the ministry's plan?
In fact, there was a brief remark by the minister himself who noted that these kinds of engagement are going to be done almost every week, to ensure that the public is well abreast of the issues, but also as part of measures to sustain the fight, which is a concern raised. They are going to ensure that over 400 personnel from NIMOS are deployed to all of these security zones as well as the hotspot to prevent other galamseyers from going to these sites. Additionally, when you use areas like even the Accra-Kumasi Road, you realize that even by the roadside, there are people who mine. And so as part of, addressing some of these concerns as well, NIMOS has announced a special number through which members of the public can call to place direct, complaint or issues of mining in their areas too. And this number, if I may, this number is 024 070 0487 024 070 0487. We can again take a listen to Mawusi detailing some of these issues or some of these measures put in place to sustain the fight against galamsey.
The forest reserves, the water bodies had been declared security zones. With that said, we're deploying currently we have about 400 trained personnel from the NIMOS team, and based off that conversation, We are deploying all 400 of them to these security zones. They have been categorized into 21 hotspots nationwide. And the teams are currently deployment is ongoing. The teams are going to be kept there permanently. And so we are not having a case where they go into the forest, they clear them, or they go on the water bodies, they clear them, and the miners have an opportunity to go back. You also remember that we also have the Blue Water Guards who are basically recruited from the riverine communities along the major water bodies who are also working. These are also permanent staff who are basically, their job is to create awareness within the communities, to serve as watchdogs, basically community vanguards, and also to ensure that they ward off these illegal miners off the water bodies.
That report. Christian, thank you so much. Now, we'll stay on the subject of Galamsey because 2 weeks after government declared forest reserves and riverbank security zones, just as you heard from the Director of Communications at the Ministry, permanent deployment is yet to begin. Sending NIMO's personnel to these security zones is part of government's efforts to protect the environment from illegal and unethical mining. In this week's edition of Hot Issues with me, Lance Minister Emmanuel Kofi Amabua says or tells us why, really, the personnel have yet to be seen in the security zones.
What we are saying is that this past approach of bringing the soldiers, driving them out, and then when they leave, they come back, it's over. We have begun the process of training. You asked me in the last 2 weeks, what have you done? When we did the announcement,
yes,
we needed to properly train the troops. The initial 400 has completely been trained. The recce's have been done. The regions and the critical zones have been identified. And we are now beginning the process of the logistics. Yesterday, to deploy them. Yesterday, we got delivery of a lot of vehicles that they need, motorbikes that they need, all of these places. To basically permit, we have just secured, thanks to the effort, the support of the Ministry of Finance, some tents that will be used. And so we believe that we are going to deploy them permanently. And I think those processes are on course.
What do you say to people who say that the permanent deployment to these security zones is because we do not have the resources to do that?
We do not have the resources.
We don't have the money to be able to
deploy permanently.
To these now classified security.
We shouldn't be spending the money to do that. That's why I'm saying that these are all stopgap measures.
So money isn't a problem for the fight against Galamsey?
Oh, money is a real problem.
Okay.
Trust me. I've been telling the world, I've been corporate Ghana to come. For example, I mean, the whole Ghana budget cannot help reclaim 7,500 football fields. I mean, the last time I was checking, that's probably $10 billion. It's impossible.
That's how expensive it is.
That's correct.
Well, full version of that interview will air on Sunday at 1 p.m. here on TV3. You're watching News Central. We'll take our very first break, but still to come. Bank of Ghana says it will inject over $1 billion into the economy this October to help stabilize the city ahead of the Christmas season. More of that when we return.
Why are more and more
And you're welcome back here on News Central. It's time for us to bring you by the numbers, and we're getting straight into it this afternoon because the Bank of Ghana says it will inject over $1 billion into the economy this October to help stabilize the city ahead of the Christmas season. Now, we know that the move is part of efforts to enhance there are enough dollars in circulation to support imports and keep prices from rising too sharply. For many Ghanaians, that might sound like something only economists should care about, but it affects everyone. The value of the city influences how much we pay for everyday essentials such as a bag of rice, cooking oil, fuel, and transport. So how does this injection work, and can releasing more dollars into the market really make your Christmas rice cheaper? And by the numbers today, we answer these questions, and we'll go into the dashboard right now to help explain this for you further, because a number of persons as well have suggested that, look, $1.15 billion is good enough money that can and should be invested into the Ghanaian economy, amongst many other things. Is that the case? Can that be done? Is that what the Bank of Ghana is seeking to do? Is what we're going to be finding out right now on the dashboard for us here on News Central. And so we know, for starters, that 1.15 billion is what the Bank of Ghana is seeking to inject into the Ghanaian economy, seeking to, amongst many other things, stabilize the Ghana city. But there's considerable justification as to why this should be the case. And amongst all of this, there are those who ask the question, what happens to the country's total foreign reserve and whether or not this impacts our imports cover. We'll seek to explain that for you. But here's what we've known in the trajectory of interventions from the Bank of Ghana, amongst many other things. As at the last time of check, say December 2024, we stood at $8.98 billion in terms of import cover. But that's gone up astronomically as at August, in excess of what? Nearly $2 billion. That's up to $10.74 billion, and that's 4.5 months of import cover for us as a country. It's always important that is in the higher side, and amongst many other things, we'll seek to get an explanation as to that. But this is what the trend of the currency market has looked like, particularly the performance of the cedi. And then we'll zero in as to why all of this is important, because we know that as at the last time of check, the IMF as well had raised concerns about the intervention of the Bank of Ghana and asking that it be checked somewhat. And in one of such reports, because we know the IMF is in town, they had asked for a certain formality in all of the BOG's intervention in the forex market. But we've moved from 15.26 as at May, we dropped to 10.28, and then now we're hovering around 12.35. But this is rates according to the Bank of Ghana. That's the central bank figures is what we're given to you. When you go to the forex bureaus and the banks, you more often than not will find out that they are a little higher, and there have been conversations, particularly as to what speculation is seeking to say in terms of moving this from 12.35 higher, and what that could mean for you and me in terms of fuel prices and the likes. Remember, already this week, we've had transport operators say they are monitoring what fuel prices will be like in the next pricing window and decide whether or not they'll begin to make a push for an increase in transport fares. So quite a number of issues which hinges on the performance of the cedi against the dollar to see whether or not price remains stable or they go up. Let's get into it a bit more in terms of why this will matter to you. And so we're seeing the BOG at this stage seeking to pump in $1.15 billion into the Ghanaian economy. What they're seeking to do is hold the cedi firm and have it stay where it is. And that will mean that prices will remain relatively stable, and it will ease the cost of imports as well for us as a country. Then prices, we understand, will stay steady. And when we say prices, that would include fuel, will include the bag of rice, which will be expected to be coming in, because when you have the conversation with the traders, they begin to do the importations around this time of the year. And so the demand for Forex peaks or it hikes, if you can say that. And that's amongst many other things what results in the hike, and then the city begins to fluctuate. And then we see, amongst many other things, a bit of a challenge. But we're going onto the phone lines right now and then speak to Dr. Peter Korte, Professor Peter Korte, I should say, on what all of this means and possibly as well what we should be doing in terms of getting a bit more in terms of the responses. He's a professional economist and an executive director, a former executive director of ESA. Prof, appreciate you speaking to us this afternoon. We know inflation has slowed 9.4%. Can this dollar injection translate into lower prices? Because even as inflation has slowed to 9.4, there's a conversation that prices of food continues to remain high.
Yeah, good afternoon to you and to your discerning viewers and listeners. Yes, this is a season where prices tend to be very high. In other words, there's a lot of pressure in the last quarter of the year. Importers tend to import for the Christmas. And then even after the Christmas, firms that have made profits for multinationals repatriate profits, etc. So there's a lot of pressure on the exchange rate. There is a lot of pressure on prices. And therefore, we cannot exactly tell the outcome of the injection, whether the rate would, it will minimize the effects of the pressure, the last quarter pressures, but whether it will be able to outweigh the pressures and ensure a lower price or lower inflation rate, we are yet to determine.
We've seen quite a number of interventions from the central bank this year. We saw in excess of $1 billion in the early part of the year. Now the Bank of Ghana has announced 1.15 billion in terms of a further injection in this last quarter. There are those who raise concerns that these frequent interventions could possibly lead to a drain in terms of foreign reserve and import cover. Where do you stand on this, and what's the argument you put forth in terms of what the BOG can do in the long run to improve the stability of the city? And I know this is a question that is asked far too many times.
Yeah, one thing we should know is that the Bank of Ghana is managed by very competent people. It has a board, it has a monetary policy committee that includes both independent members. So they monitor whatever, and they have oversight over money supply, they have oversight over the market, they regulate the forex market, they regulate the banks and other financial institutions. So they are very well placed to know what our reserves are, how much is going out, and what we can do and what we cannot do. At the moment, our reserves are quite high, and averagely you need something of 30% of import cover. We have more than that, so I don't expect us to have any challenge. And I'm sure they are monitoring the process. So we shouldn't panic when it is not appropriate. I don't think Bank of Ghana will continue to pump money in the system. Their role or mandate to ensure price stability and also ensure economic growth and prosperity. So that mandate is what they are pursuing currently as we speak.
Thoughts finally on the decision to announce this time around. We had seen concerns raised by the IMF just some months ago about the intervention policy of the BOG, asking for a bit more clarity. Is this announcement we're seeing from the Bank of Ghana seeking to tick the box for the IMF even as they are in town and there's a fifth review underway?
Well, I don't think the Bank of Ghana is doing anything untoward, not doing anything illegal. They are working within their mandate. It's an advice from the IMF, basically asking them to have some kind of like a structure or a timetable as to when to intervene. You want to say every quarter or every month, this is how much I'm going to intervene. But then there is that discretion as well. You should also allow some discretion on the part of Bank of Ghana, that when they see the market, they see some unusual demand, they quickly have to step in before it translates onto the market. There is a noisy part of the market, and that is the black market, that is the Forest Bureau, that aspect. They form about 20% or thereabouts, but they are quite noisy. So if you allow whatever happens in the banking system to translate into that arena, you will hear a lot of speculation, a lot of noise, and that is exactly what Bank of Ghana is trying to avoid, and therefore the interventions as and when the need arises.
Prof, I appreciate you speaking to us. That's Professor Peter Cortes, a former director of ESA, speaking to us this afternoon on the latest in the announcements by the central bank. There you have it. It's expected to, amongst many other things, stabilize the city. That will control pricing on the market, and so you will not have to see sporadic increases in the cost of what you spend money on in getting the everyday goods for both the household and the businesses as well. That'll take us on to another break and bring an end to By the Numbers as well.
Don't be a bird who sing the cage. Make a bold step, the word is.
Welcome back. We'll now take you across the regions. Onion farmers in the Volta region are urging government to control or stop completely the importation of onions from neighboring countries. This call was made when Deputy Minister for Agriculture John Dumelo met the farmers in the Anglo and Ketu South areas following reports of onion glut resulting in huge losses for the farmers. Let's connect now with our correspondent Faisal Abdul-Idrisu, who first reported the story. Join us with a bit more on this. Faisal, good afternoon to you. Now, this call from the farmers, what could be their reason?
Yes, one of the major factors, one of the challenges the farmers face currently is the issue of competition from imported onion from the sub-region, particularly from Niger and Nigeria. They tell us that on the market today, a large number of onion from these countries are on the market. And so people are moving towards that direction, buying the onion that is imported rather than the locally produced one, which is a little much expensive than what is imported. Now, what causes this, high prices for the locally produced onion is the issue of farm input as well. And so yesterday, they presented these two issues. One, for government to look into it and help them reduce the cost of production by way of subsidizing the cost on the farm inputs, including fertilizer, including the issue of electricity tariffs, because a large number of them depend on irrigation farming. But the crux of this conversation is the issue of the call on government to either halt completely the importation of the onions or reduce it. Now, for the local farmers here, they do their harvesting between the months of August to October. And so they are telling government that if they cannot do anything about it at all, then when they are about harvesting, starting from the month of August to October, then government would have to intervene and stop the importation or reduce it drastically so that once they are done with their harvesting and sale, then they can allow the floodgate for that matter. Let's have a listen to the farmers on this particular development.
The government is that now we, the irrigation farmers, they should put us in a special tariff in terms of electricity. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, they should subsidize the fertilizer so that we can be able to afford it. Now the fertilizer is costing 450 cedis. So if they can bring the subsidy, that we can afford something like between 200 cedis or 250 cedis, I think we can be able to afford it.
So we know you've also been engaging the Deputy Agric Minister. What did he say?
Well, so the minister yesterday indicated that, of course, they are aware of these challenges facing the farmers, and as a government, they are interested in supporting them, one, by way of subsidizing the cost of farm input, fertilizer, among others. But on the issue of importation, he noted that, of course, as a country, we have bilateral trade agreements with all these countries, and from time to time, we also do some form of export to them. And so now that this issue is coming to light, he'll get back to the ministry and do further engagement of this issue to see how best they can approach it. But what is more important is that they would approach this issue from the perspective of reducing the cost of production by way of subsidizing the prices of the farmers.
We have to look at the cost of production, and so these are the concerns the farmers have raised, and these are the concerns that we will definitely address, or we are addressing. We know that the cost of farm inputs is high, and so we are encouraging more local producers of some of these farm inputs so that we can reduce the cost. That at the end of the day, the end product will be much cheaper than most of the imported goods. And so these issues are genuine concerns, and definitely we know that we are looking at it. The government is definitely going to supply farmers with fertilizer, of course subsidized fertilizer very soon, and that's what we are working on. And so farmers should be rest assured that these fertilizers are going to come, and they're going to come at a very good price, and we are assuring farmers that next year they should produce more, because also we've given the mandate to the National Buffer Stock to buy the excesses on the market. And so
Well, Faisal, thank you so much for the reporting.
And Esquire season it is. Over 800 lawyers have been called to the bar. The acting Chief Justice Paul Bafuboni presided over the grand ceremony to admit the new lawyers. And as you may well know, two of our colleagues here at Media General, Sixtus Don Ulo and Joseph Akablay, are part of the new lawyers in town. We say a big congratulations to them. Edward Carowe as well, former General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union. He's a part of the individuals. I know Benjamin Alpha as well. Congratulations to him. Eric Yawe J, who's the boss for NEIP as well, is being called to the bar today as well. And so a huge congratulations to all of them.
Congratulations to Sawami here. You forgot that one.
Sawami here as well. A huge congratulations. Then there's oh, his name is just escaping me, with the graphic communications group as well. He as well has got called to the bar today, and fantastic job done. It's been a hard battle. But let's connect with Lord just briefly as well. Lord, I mean, talk to us, the mood like for these 800 fresh lawyers and what has been said at the ceremony.
Well, Mawuena, so the total number of people, lawyers are 824. We have 2 in-house persons, so he sisters here with me, and then there's Joseph. We've already outlined the number of people who have been called as well, but essentially the Chief Justice has been advising to cut corners. They should take the long haul, because basically being a lawyer is about service. So you look at the people who are underprivileged over the years, see what the legal facility is all about. There's a lot of flamboyance and everything, but the issue of service is very key. And I'm sure sisters will agree with me. Over the years, what we are told as a new lawyer is that and services. So what I just different as a new lawyer now that you have.
Definitely, my Lord Chief Justice.
Right, Lord, thank you very much. And the name I was looking for with the Graphic Communications Group is Ebo Hoxton.
Yeah.
Ebo as well, a huge congratulations to you on a fantastic job done. In some cases 6+ years, some others 5. And for some, the journey has been a lot longer.
Continuing.
But always something to be very proud of. That's our bulletin for you this afternoon as well. I am Mawuena Egbeta.
And I am Kemini Amanor. Bye-bye.